All right, and welcome to Sports on Tap. I'm your host, Rob Troutman. Joining me now is Ed, Josh, and Sean. As it's the, the third round of the playoffs, and guys, what a week it was for the playoff games. I mean, some awesome games we had. The weather was kind of crazy last week. We also have regular season games, so we'll give those game recaps first, and then we'll get into the playoffs and talk a little bit about some of the teams that we had play, and we'll give the game recaps there. But guys, thanks for being here again. Hope you had a good Monday so far. But we're on the tail end here.
Tail end of what?
Tail end of the Monday.
Oh, well, yeah.
And we're
I
also
thought you were talking about the tail end of the week. I'm like, you need
wish.
to consult your calendar.
the tail end of the football.
Yes.
Believe it or not, we're getting close to the end of the football season, which is hard to imagine.
Yeah, it's been a quick season, very quick season.
Yeah.
It feels like not that long ago we were discussing whether or not we were even going to have a full season. Now we're like staring regional semifinals in the face and talking legitimately about state championships and things like that. And it's weird because normally we're just kind of gearing up into playoff talk right about now. Usually Ed's got his professor hat on. He's got some sort of PowerPoint presentation with Excel spreadsheets and pivot tables explaining the point systems, and I'm trying my best to pay attention like every Zoom meeting that I'm in. But that's not the case anymore. It's actually a true playoff system, and it's been fun to follow.
I think we're all just. I think also they were just happy we are in a position that we can even talk about a playoff system, let alone the current system that we have right now. I think if you take a poll from the coaches in the state, I think you'll get a good amount of coaches who I think appreciated the way this went with every team getting in. I can tell you, North Royalton's coach certainly feels that way, amongst some other lower seeded teams. But there are also the traditionalists that that say it's a privilege to qualify for the state playoffs in football, and there is nothing like it. But next season, provided everything goes back to somewhat of normal, whatever normal is anymore, we will have an expanded playoffs. So there will be 12 teams per region in the playoffs. So I think we get a little bit of a preview of what that looks like just with more teams this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a lot of fun to see the different kind of matchups. Like you said, Ed, North Royalton, I thought was a great example of a team that didn't have many wins during the season, but they're in a really tough conference, and they proved what they can do going up against some SWC teams, and they did really well. And we'll get obviously into their game coming up, but I think it's fun to see those kind of teams. Maybe knock out some of those higher seeds and see what they can do to stir up some trouble in the playoffs, to say the least. So,
Certainly.
So without further ado, we'll get to the regular season games. They're not the playoffs games first. And Josh, why don't you start us off with the Greater Cleveland Conference?
Yeah, there was a couple teams that had non-playoff games that decided to continue their season after their playoff run had ended. We're going to start first with Solon. And Rob can chime in, too, a little bit on this one. Solon played Berea Mid-Park in this one. Solon came away with a 34-19 victory in this one. Actually, Berea Mid-Park was up 13-0 at halftime. And then Solon did what they started doing towards the end of the year. They concentrated on the run, and that running game was led by running back Khalil Eichelberger. In this game, he had a huge game for the Comets. He ran the ball 29 times. He totaled 273 yards and ended up with 4 touchdowns in this game. Solon actually scored 20 points in the third quarter. They did outscore Berea Mid-Park 34-6 in the second half, and that allowed them to really put their stamp on this game and actually notch their second victory of the year. So, Rob, from Berea Mid-Park's point of view, having that 13-0 lead at the half and then just being able to and Solon being able to run the ball with ease in the second half really led to a dominant performance by the Comets.
Yeah, and like you said, I think overall it was really tough for Berea Mid-Park to stop the run, and that's one thing that they've had a little bit of trouble is on the defensive side of the ball, stopping the run and some passing, but mostly the ground attack. I mean, when you have 273 yards on 29 attempts, Eichelberger scored 4 times in the game. I mean, what an impressive performance by him. And Berea Mid-Park just couldn't figure him out. Now, quarterback Luke Devins for Berea Mid-Park, he did throw for 304 yards and 3 touchdowns in the game for Berea Mid-Park, but just a tough game for them. They didn't put up the offensive numbers that they're used to putting up. 19 points, give Solon credit there. I thought they did a really nice job stopping the Titans' offense, but the Titans' defense struggled with that run attack, and an impressive win for Solon.
Yeah, for sure. And this game for Berea Mid-Park was similar to the game last week against Elyria. They gave up a lot of rushing yards, but on the offensive end were able to pass the ball around for a high number of yards. Devins was not able to put up over 400 yards like he did last week, but still put up some solid numbers. But it just wasn't enough. Once again, Solon goes on to the 34-19 victory. They improved to 2-4 on the season, and Berea Mid-Park drops to 3-6, if I do have that right. The other game pitted 2 teams, both from Rob and I's conferences. Elyria with a 50-28 victory over the Southwestern Conference Midview Middies. Elyria scored all of their touchdowns via the ground game. Elyria had 2 rushing touchdowns in the first quarter as they went up 14-0. They added 2 rushing touchdowns by Glover and Whitfield, and they had a 28-0 halftime lead. Jaheim Atkinson for the Pioneers had 2 rushing touchdowns in the second half to make the score 42-14. Midview would try to come back with 3:42 left in the game. Midview did score a touchdown, made it 42-28. But Emery Horton scored the final touchdown for Elyria that made the score 50-28. Not a lot of information in terms of stats that I found, Rob. I don't know if you found any on your end, but another solid victory for Elyria. They improved to 2-7 on the season. Midview drops to 1-7.
Yeah, and it was tough to find some stats on this game, but when you look overall, Midview 1-7, 1-5 in Coach Luke Beal's inaugural season there with the Middies. But they've been close in a lot of games, and their offense with Ethan Surdock, the quarterback, he can put up some points. They have a good offensive scheme. It's just on the defensive side of the ball they're a little bit short there, trying to get players to play both ways, and it's tough right now. But they're fighting. They had a great game versus North Olmsted, but Elyria, I think they're going to fit in the Southwestern Conference really nice, and they're showing it here. They had, I believe, back-to-back weeks against Southwestern Conference foes, and they continue to win. So a big win for Elyria, putting up 50 points, and an impressive win for them against a good Midview team. Midview's that team that they're scrappy, and they claw back. They never give up, and they fell a little bit short here, but like you said, they dropped to 1-7, 1-5 on the year, does the Middies. And Elyria, continues to win. So they're getting better with each game. You can see with the Pioneers this year.
Yeah, I think they're making the perfect time to switch over to Southwestern Conference. And Midview and Elyria are in similar boats. They're starting their programs, fresh. They're trying to build. Elyria has a little bit of a head start over Midview, but again, a great move by the Pioneers to move to the Southwestern Conference just to give them a little more competitive edge and on to the next season. Now, in terms of next week of non-playoff games, as of right now, currently, the only game that I have listed is Elyria will host Division III Region 9 Cheney in this one. That's the only game that I have right now that I know of that I have seen, according to JoeIdle.com.
Yeah, and I think it's gonna start getting slimmer. It seems like with some of these teams, because I had the same thing. There's some teams in the Southwestern Conference that their seasons are done, and then there's other teams that have a few games left other than the playoff games. So it's going to be interesting to see, but not a ton of regular season games as we get down and get farther here into the playoffs.
Yeah, and there were still 3 GCC teams that were still actually in the playoffs. once again, after we go over the non-playoff games in each of our conferences, we're really going to break down the playoff brackets. That'll be coming up here in just a little bit.
All right. Nice job, Josh, with that. Now we'll go to the Southwestern Conference, and I only had one other game other than the two we covered, and there wasn't much on this, and Ed might have the same thing. We'll see if Ed has. I only found the score, which North Ridgeville beat Normandy 66-13. They improved to 2-5 on the year. Normandy to 0-7, and I really couldn't find a lot of stats or game line here with what happened in this game, but obviously North Ridgeville back-to-back wins here, getting out and starting to win some games, and they'll actually have another game as they travel to Sandusky after one more week left for them. But Ed, did you find anything with Normandy and North Ridgeville?
No, I didn't. Unfortunately for Normandy, things have just been tough to come by, both from finding stats and then just their season in general. Wins haven't been easy to come by for Normandy in the last couple of years. That the Parma school district is huge, but it seems as if right now it seems to me that they go through cycles where one of the three Parma city schools happens to be more dominant than the others at any given time. Right now, I think it's Valley Forge who is going on a little bit of a run as far as that's concerned. They also have a really good scheme by Coach DeAngelis there. Parma had a good run a couple of years ago as well. Normandy was good about a decade ago. They had a really good class that did some damage. I think they made it to the regional finals back in 2007. But since then, they just haven't been able to win a lot of games. And this year, unfortunately, they really haven't been that competitive either. So hopefully, Normandy. Normandy next week will take on Valley Forge next week. That's going to be a tough game for them. But these are the types of games that you can see though. North Ridgeville and Normandy. That's a good game. That's usually a good game, a good competitive game. Just this year, and not so much from the Normandy side.
Yeah, and it gets tougher as the season goes on, especially for these regular season games. A lot of places are focusing on obviously the playoffs, and as you get deeper into the playoffs, so we'll see what happens there. Now, Ed, did you have any other Great Lakes Conference regular season games?
Yeah. There is almost a full slate of Great Lakes Conference games. So we'll start with Bay 1-5. The Bay Rockets travel to Parma to take on the 1-5 Redmen. Bay jumped on top early with a 14-0 lead. However, Parma's Dominic Gallo scored from 1 yard out to cut the lead in half. As Parma was driving to tie the game, Bay intercepted the quarterback. That led to a 34-yard field goal. The Redmen hung tough, but the Bay Rockets pulled away. They scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth period, and they come away with a 31-7 victory. With the win, Bay improves to 2-5 overall. They will host Lakewood next week. Parma falls to 1-6. They will host future Great Lakes Conference foe Westlake next week. We talked about Normandy and North Ridgeville. Fairview was 1-6. They traveled to 2-6 Lakewood. The Rangers, they took it to the Warriors this week. They come away with a 26-14 win. Lakewood improves to 3-6 overall. They will travel to Bay next week. Fairview is 1-6, and they have a scheduled game against Lutheran West, according to JoeIdle.com. And then my last game that I have, Medina Buckeye, 4-2 overall. They traveled to Rocky River to take on the 4-2 Pirates. Buckeye started hot. They got a 4-yard touchdown run from running back Cayman Marshall. Rocky River answered quickly with an 18-yard touchdown run by quarterback Braden Spees. Mac Massett added a 32-yard field goal to give the Pirates a 10-7 lead. Tommy Beebe then scored the first of his 3 touchdowns to give the Pirates a 17-7 lead. However, Buckeye, they jumped back into the game with a Shane Bainbrick 59-yard touchdown reception from quarterback Jaden May. However, in the second half, it was all Pirates. They scored 29 unanswered points, and they pulled away for a 46-14 win. Tommy Beebe rushed 13 times for 138 yards and 3 touchdowns. His brother John Beebe finished with 168 yards rushing for the Pirates. With the win, Rocky River improves to 5-2 overall. They have a scheduled game, an away game at Elyria Catholic. Buckeye drops to 4-3, and as of right now, they do not have a scheduled opponent for next week. Valley Forge did not participate in the game this week, and then Elyria Catholic, unfortunately, was not able to participate in their game this past week due to COVID-19. So they, provided they can get back on the field, they will again host Rocky River, and then the team that I have left in the playoffs in the GLC is Holy Name. We will talk about that here in a little bit in Division 3, Region 10.
All right, nice work, Ed. That was quick work there in the GLC. Like most of our conferences, you have a few games there, and Sean's been waiting patiently. He's starting to eat his marker there, so we want to make sure we get to him before we lose him here.
I'm not anxiously waiting. I'm nervously watching scores for the for what I can only describe as a make or break fantasy football game for me this week. Difference between a trade for the future or a fire sale. But starting out in the Suburban League, I had 7 non-conference, non-playoff matchups in the Suburban Leagues. The only cross-conference American Division, National Division matchups saw the Kent Roosevelt Rough Riders ride into Cuyahoga Falls and come out with a 35-0 victory. It was all Rough Riders all night as Quentin Upshaw, the running back, toted the ball 12 times for 142 yards and 2 touchdowns. Meanwhile, Roosevelt quarterback Christian Detweiler went 5 of 11 with 2 touchdown passes on the night, and they come away again with a 35-0 victory over Cuyahoga Falls. Cuyahoga Falls is set to play Twinsburg next week, and right now Kent Roosevelt is scheduled at Revere. Talmadge traveled to take on Coventry, and it took 3 overtimes, but the Blue Devils were able to get a 36-30 victory. Again, the caveat being a lot of these games were Friday night. A lot of these had about a 90-minute weather delay, give or take about 15-20 minutes. Any game that really got finished Friday night had to contend with some sort of weather delay, anywhere from 30 to 90 minutes. Same difference here, but Talmadge and Coventry battled it out into 3 overtimes. But Talmadge came away with the win. Talmadge will travel to face Ravenna this coming week on Friday. Copley rebounds from a devastating loss in the playoffs last week to Norwalk with a cathartic win on the road, 28-0 over Woodridge. It was all Copley, both on the defensive and offensive side of the ball, as they were able to shut out Woodridge 28-0. Copley will face Highland at home this Friday. Kenston traveled into Twinsburg, and Twinsburg got its second win of the year thanks to a 28-14 victory at home against Kenston. Big win for Twinsburg. Again, as I mentioned, they only had 1 win on the year coming into this. They got their second win, looking to continue that winning streak as they will host Cuyahoga Falls, as I mentioned, this Friday. Stowe and Steubenville were scheduled for a contest last week, but that game was canceled. No makeup date is available for that this time. Stowe will host Wadsworth this coming week in a Suburban League National Division matchup. Cleveland Heights traveled into Nordonia. Nordonia exercised a little bit of those frustrations from their loss last week in the playoffs as they beat Cleveland Heights 42-26. This was a all Nordonia, all night type of deal for Nordonia. They get on the right side of the win-loss column and are able to move on to take on Worcester next week, as they will have to travel to Worcester. Nordonia beats Cleveland Heights 42-26, and Wadsworth played Worcester this week, and they unfortunately kind of suffered a tough loss, 39-28, as they traveled in to take on Worcester. Again, this was one of those last-minute ads. I don't think they may have had enough time for this. They were, out of the playoffs pretty early, but they had some scheduling issues. But Wadsworth did pick up a game and go to Worcester. They did not, unfortunately, come back with a victory. They look to rebound as they face National Division rival Stowe this coming week, which will probably be a really good game as far as a non-playoff game is concerned. Those are all the non-playoff games I have for the Suburban League. Really not much on the Suburban League, anything that wasn't in the playoffs, because, again, a lot of teams from the Suburban League are involved in a lot of the divisions we're about to cover. A lot of the big hitters in the Suburban League had games. Some of them some really good games, some of them not so much. But we'll get into that as we go through our playoff coverage. Moving on.
Nice job, Sean, and with the Suburban League, and busy. You got a busy league over there.
Yeah, you guys are running. This league is running me ragged right now. I mean, listen, it's a great problem to have because they're good teams and they're fun to follow. But I think the people of certain teams are starting to think that I'm like a scout for colleges. I'm really not. I don't have any. So stop sending me tapes. Stop asking me who I work. Stop asking me what college I represent. I wear a Sports on Tap jacket. I'm not there for a college. I'm not lying to you. I'm simply there to cover the game.
Do you wear your Irish hat? That's the key question, though.
No, I wear. Well, I don't wear this hat, but I wear my black Columbia hat.
Okay.
I made that mistake the first time we did games when I wore my Notre Dame hat, and everyone thought I was a Notre Dame scout. While that's a dream of mine, it's not currently the case.
Well, if anybody out there wants to catch Sean's stuff, it's sportsontappodcast.com.
And Brian Kelly, if you want to hire me to be a scout, I would love to do that.
You want to give your email available?
No, I don't. If Brian Kelly reaches out to me, then absolutely. But I'm not going to just volunteer that.
At SOT Podcast is our Twitter. We're obviously on Facebook right now. We're on Facebook Live right now. Want to let everybody know that. YouTube, we do archive all these shows, so you can go and catch those on our YouTube page. But sportsontappodcast.com or sportsontappodcast@gmail.com if you want to send us emails. All right, guys. So now, the third round of the playoffs is in the books, and we're going to get to the semifinal, the regional semifinals here. Give you those matchups, but Division I, Region I was really a great bracket right now, and I know Josh and Ed are going to have something to say about this. Maybe Sean will come in here, but some pretty good matchups in that Division I, Region I bracket.
Yeah, Rob, that's we're kind of personal with this Division I, Region I bracket because obviously teams we're very familiar with are in it. 3 out of the 4 teams that are left in this bracket are from the Greater Cleveland Conference. The first matchup that we're going to have in the regional semifinal that we're going to go over featured 2 GCC rivals, Mentor Cardinals and the Brunswick Blue Devils. And Brunswick was trying to get some payback from an earlier 38-0 victory the Cardinals had early on in the regular season. Now, last week when we talked about this game, kind of previewed it, we thought the key for Brunswick was a good, solid running game and a good, solid defense. And they came out with that in the first half. In fact, Brunswick had 223 total yards in the first half. Andrew Haber had 14 rushing attempts for 97 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first half alone. And this game was tied at 14 at the half. So, we kind of figured that the way the Brunswick Blue Devils were playing, that they were going to match up better in this game than they did in the regular season. Mentor just they were just kind of feeling their way out through this game. They knew they were going to have a tough matchup against the Blue Devils, and just how they did in the previous game, their previous matchup in the playoffs. To start the second half, it was all special teams. Michael Norwood to start the second half ran the second half kickoff 86 yards for a touchdown. That made the score 21-14. And not enough can be said about Mentor's kicker, Andrew Smith. The kid's got a strong leg. In this game, he hit 3 field goals in the second half, 2 of which were in the third quarter, one from 38 yards, the other from 44 yards, and that made the score 27-14 in favor of Mentor. Now, for a high school team to have a kicker that has a strong leg and has that ability to make long-distance field goals is such an advantage for teams. And, Ed, you could speak about this a little bit if you want. That just adds another dimension that a lot of teams at the high school level just simply do not have. Anytime you can go down and you have a drive stall at, just outside the red zone, but you have the ability to get points, is just an advantage that not a lot of teams have.
Yeah, that's correct. I watched the game pretty much from start to finish online, and Smith is impressive. He was the special teams player of the year last year as a junior, Of course, he split that with one Justin Hagler from Brunswick, who he did everything last year for the Blue Devils from the kicking standpoint. But Smith came back as a senior and made good on and improved from his junior campaign. I mean, last week he hit a 50-yarder. So from 44, 38, it's well within his range, and he certainly took advantage of the wind that he had at his back. Not that a player like him doesn't need the wind, but it certainly helps. All he has to do is just put it on target, and it's going to go through. He had the two kicks that you referenced in the third quarter specifically. I watched those live, and he's got a cannon for a leg, and he's able to put him in the end zone very efficiently from the kickoff spot as well. So that's you're 100% right, Josh. And for the most part, most high school teams do not have a player of that caliber. And you can only hope that a soccer player or someone who knows what they're doing has the size, has the strength, and has the ability and has the want to get themselves there. Smith clearly proved that this year, and as this year and going forward.
Yeah, and as we continue on with the game, again, just Brunswick did not have enough to match the firepower of Menor. Menor just kind of was steady as they go from this one. The final score for the Cardinals, Ian Kipp hit John Serpotowski from 34 yards out. Ian Kipp in this game was 20 of 29, 288 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Brunswick did a pretty decent job keeping him in check for the most part. For Menor, also, Riley Coughlin had 74 yards on 11 attempts. So even though the Brunswick Blue Devils did fall short in this game, they did play tough. And I know moral victories aren't necessarily what anyone wants, especially in the playoffs. But this game, Brunswick played tough with Menor. And just to add that to the playoff run that they had this year is a total program builder. We talked about it last week. A total program builder for Coach Benzoni and that staff. That some good things are starting to come back to Brunswick once again.
Absolutely. This was a great playoff run for Brunswick. Hosting a very tough Massillon-Jackson game at home is the first home playoff game they had in 12 years. In fact, they win their first playoff game in 12 years against Massillon-Jackson. Then they go to Camp McKinley. They exercise those demons by beating a team they'd never beaten before in the playoffs. And then, playing Menor tough. We always talk about how it's tough beating the same team twice in the same season. Menor, unfortunately, has had Brunswick's number for quite a while, including in 2013, where they completely manhandled us in both games. But this specific group is very different. These seniors, if you give them 2 cracks at the same opponent, they're going to find a way to keep themselves competitive, and that's exactly what they did. Coaching staff did a tremendous job developing a game plan, and the players showed up. I couldn't be more proud of the team that had to step away from this year. They did a tremendous job, and will, as you said, certainly sets the standard for the juniors, the sophomores, and the incoming players to want to keep that going. And I would say starting with your guys' class in '99, we had a decade of very, very good football that we played, starting with you guys and then starting with my class as well. So I'm hoping that this is going to kickstart, going into the 2020s decade, that Brunswick will be back.
Yeah, I think it's a confidence builder. I mean, especially when you beat such a quality opponent like Canton McKinley, and you beat Massillon-Jackson. I mean, this is a team that for the last few years have really struggled. And you start from the bottom and then you keep building and building. And Coach Pizzoni has believed in these guys along with everybody else. And this is a big confidence booster. I think this is something you hang on the wall and say, look at the progress we've made. And they keep making progress. And to lose to Menor, I mean, we know how tough Menor is. I mean, year in and year out, they're there, and they have a huge program. And they competed. I mean, they were tied at halftime in that game. So, something obviously to not get down about, but we'll see what Menor can do as they advance.
I want to, and that's I think, and we talk a lot about Brunswick on here, but I do want to give credit to Menor head coach Matt Gray. He's only 30. I think he's only 32, and for him to step in, Coach Trevisano, but by no doubt left him the program in a very good state. However, as the head coach, as a very young head coach, he's done a tremendous job of maintaining exactly what Menor's been doing in years past, and getting them to the regional finals again. So hats off to Coach Gray and the job he's done as Menor's first year head coach.
Yeah, Ed, that's a great point, because it's a very tough job to follow up. One of the great coaches in our area who's been there for 20 plus years, and he's established that program. So there's a lot of pressure to not only maintain that standard, but to continue it and to even improve it. And so far, so good in his first year. So, obviously they're looking to continue and make a lot of noise. But they got a tough opponent in the regional final. We talked about how great of a playoff run Brunswick's was. You can't get any better than the one Medina's on right now. The Bees of Medina, they first started off with a big win against conference rival Strongsville. Then they had to go up against the number 1 seed St. Edward Eagles, came away with a big victory. And then they had to go against, in this game, the number 5 seeded St. Ignatius Wildcats. And the Bees came through with another solid victory in this one. Medina in this game went back to the passing offense. Drew Alar in the first half, 21 of 36 for 427 yards in the first half.
Wow.
The past couple games before that, can you guys hear me okay, by the way?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Just curious, because I'm looking at the screen here, the Zoom, and I don't see that. Am I on the screen talking? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, you're good, dude.
Okay, sorry. I lost my flow now. But anyways, like I said, Medina went back to the passing attack that we got familiar with early on in the year. The past couple of games here in the playoffs, they relied on the running game, a more balanced attack. This one, they went back to the passing game. Drew Alar again, 21 of 36, 427 yards in the first half. In this game, he totaled 488 yards and had 4 touchdown passes. Luke Hensley had 10 of those receptions for 187 yards and 2 touchdowns, and those were in the first half. Medina's defense was able to hold St. Ignatius, that high-powered running attack that they've had all year. They've only kept them to 68 total yards in this game. Medina was up early in this one. St. Ignatius did come back, and they were led by quarterback Joe Paff. He was 26 of 45 for 354 yards and 4 touchdowns in this game. In the fourth quarter, Pfaff found Nick Lamoran from 11 yards out, and that pulled Ignatius within the 31-26. They were down 31-26 in the fourth quarter. Lamoran had 10 receptions, 121 yards in this game. Joe Becker for the Wildcats also added 120 yards with 2 touchdowns on 6 receptions. Now, what really was the kind of nail in the coffin for the Medina Bees against the St. Ignatius Wildcats was my player of the week last week nominee, and the actually player of the week that got voted on by you, the fans, on our Twitter page. Matt Spotney sealed the game up with a safety in this one, and Medina went on to a 33-26 victory. So anytime you could beat one of those 2 powerhouse private schools in our area is a great playoff run. But if you could beat 2, you are having yourself a heck of a playoff run. This is actually Medina's first ever trip to the regional finals. They will travel to Menor. That game will be played this Friday at 7 o'clock. The winner will go on to the state semifinal. These 2 teams, Menor and Medina, early on, they met in the season opener, and I believe Menor came home with a 37 20-19 win over Medina. So Medina, Larry Laird, his staff looking to get some revenge on the Cardinals. This is going to be, I feel, a great game. Medina is just playing some great football right now. On the offensive end, they have it all going on for them. Earlier in this game, they weren't able to capitalize. They had some good drives, but they weren't able to score points. They missed 2 field goals. We just talked about how important field goal kicking is, and it will be probably in this game. But they were able to, make the stops when they needed to on defense, score some points on offense, and they came away with a solid victory over one of the most storied programs in our area. So congratulations to the Medina Bees. We're supposed to be biased in this one, Brunswick, Blue Devils, whatever, but I'm rooting for the Bees in this one. I love to see playoff runs like this. It's so good for not only the school, the kids, but it's also good for the community as well. And a run like this from Medina only strengthens the power of the Greater Cleveland Conference. It just makes it better when it comes to football. So congratulations to them, and congratulations to the Mentor Cardinals, an all GCC regional final. Good luck to both teams. And we'll look forward to see how this one ends up on Friday.
Yeah, Medina went beast mode so far in the playoffs. I mean, what an impressive run so far. And, it just shows you never know what can happen when you play the games. I mean, beating St. Edward and St. Ignatius in back-to-back weeks. You don't see that too often, but an impressive run. And they're going to have their hands full with Mentor, who just knows how to get it done. And we'll see if they have the hat trick in store. Do they have the third win? Almost like I think you were surprised by the first, and then when they beat Ignatius, you might have been a little surprised, but know how good this Medina team is this year. So, Ed, what do you think? Do you think Medina has one more in them to maybe pull a shocker a little bit?
They certainly have the capability of doing so. They have a high-powered offense that can score with Mentor, and they have established the fact that they can both run the ball and pass the ball and use whichever they need at a certain time to do what they need to do. The big thing with this game and what hurt Medina earlier in the year, especially against Brunswick, was turnovers. They did not turn the ball over at all in this game, save for a couple of missed opportunities inside, when they had drives inside the 5-yard line. And you're right, Josh. The kicking game is going to be huge in this game coming up. And right now, you'd be hard pressed to say that anyone's got an advantage over Mentor with Andrew Smith. I don't think anyone can outkick him right now. That's currently in the playoffs. So it would behoove Coach Laird just to score touchdowns and not have to settle on field goals if they don't have to. But they certainly have the power, the capability of doing so. The five wide set that they use. Drew Allar was a complete stud in this past game, and instead of forcing the ball, taking an incomplete pass, there's no, they can throw the ball enough to compensate for an incomplete pass here and there. I think they are more than capable of taking Mentor out. That said, Mentor's going to respect the fact that they took out Ignatius and Eds, because not many teams can say they've done that. I think it took an NFL quarterback by the name of Mitch Trubisky to do it for Mentor in years past. So if Medina can find a way to pull this trifecta off, no disrespect to Stronsville, Ignatius, Eds, and Mentor, that's you cannot say that they will not have earned their trip to the state semifinals. And you're right, Josh and Rob. And up here in Medina County, that's going to be huge for the not only for the conference but also for the county in general. To have a Division I school in our county be represented in the state semifinals would be just absolutely massive.
Sean, any thoughts?
I'm excited to see if Medina can pull off like you said, the trifecta. St. Ed's, that was impressive. St. Ignatius, really impressive. As Ed said, Mentor, that's a resume that not many teams will argue with. I still say, obviously, until Mentor's beaten, Mentor is the team to beat. I mean, that's the way this region works. They don't. It's no shrinking violet on the other side for Medina, and I don't think they're treating it that way. I think they're treating it as they did against St. Ignatius or St. Ed's or even Strongsville. These are all good teams. You got to play your best game. And right now, Medina has played their best game every week since the playoffs started. So does that continue, or does Menor do what Menor does? And that's grind teams down, control the pace of play, score the way they know how to score, and play defense the way they know how to play defense. And that's something that I think is going to be, very interesting to follow this week, particularly because there's a lot on the line for both teams. There's a trip to the state semifinals, and that's nothing to shake a stick at in Division One.
Yeah, and real quick, in terms of Menor, I think in this playoff run that they've had, they have not faced a team that has an offense like Medina thus far. So that's going to be a challenge for them. It's been quite some time since they've been able to face an offense like this. So it's going to be interesting to see how Medina comes out and plays, whether or not they do, their spread quick fire offense, or they do ground and pound. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. So looking forward to the game. It's going to be fun.
Absolutely. That's it was a fun game to follow. Realistically, when you looked at obviously I couldn't go to that game, and the weather was not great, but they played it on Saturday, so at least they had decent weather for that, and a fun game to follow overall. But now let's head to Division 2, Region 5 is the next division that we have here.
Yeah, and that division featured a team from the Suburban League. The number 3 seeded Hudson Explorers hosted the Painesville Riverside, and this game was pretty close throughout the night. As I mentioned in our non-playoff games, anything that played on Friday night, there was a significant delay no matter where you were, either as the game started or delayed the game starting altogether. So it's going to be kind of hit and miss with a lot of these, because a lot of the reporters and the information that we source just didn't have a lot of information. But on this game, it was a thrilling 35-28 overtime victory by Hudson to advance to the Division II Region 5 semifinals. The usual suspects for Hudson were there. Jacob Peltani, another great night, 14-22 for 201 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also contributed 17 carries for 55 yards. Hudson running back Drew Leitner had 2 touchdown runs, and the game-winning touchdown was scored by previous RRT Productions Player of the Week, Aiden Lau, in the overtime period to secure the victory over Painesville Riverside. Now, to kind of break down this particular region, I'm going to just quickly go through the scores of the games that happened Friday night, starting off with the number 1 seed Akron Archbishop Hoban, who again had their second straight shutout of the playoffs. They've outscored their 2 opponents 105-0. So Hoban is a team that I don't think anyone's really excited to play. That being said, they did defeat Mayfield 42-0 on Friday night to move on to the semifinals. And it will be Cleveland Benedictine, who also had an overtime victory over Cuyahoga Falls Walsh Jesuit 27-20. The team that will be facing the Hudson Explorers, number 3 seed, is a surprise here. Warren G. Harding got a 24-10 victory over Austin Town Fitch, the number 2 seed, to advance to the semifinals, where they will travel to take on the number 3 seed Hudson Explorers. Now, guys, as I mentioned, every time I talk about this division, every time I talk about this region, all roads going through Hoban. And that's just the way it is at this point, and I don't know if there's a team out there that can stop them. Hudson had to go to overtime to beat a Painesville Riverside team that I thought, with the offense that Hudson has, again, the weather may have played a huge factor in this, because of the fact that, you may have had to stop and start and things like that, may have thrown off some rhythm here. But it's going to be interesting if Hudson can get past Warren Harding, and that's no guarantee either, because Warren Harding went into the number 2 seed and beat them on the road. So it's going to be an interesting matchup, I think. But I think Hudson gets that. And then, like I said, the juggernaut in this region is Hoban. I mean, they're the number 1 team in the region in the area right now. And I think they're just scoring at will, and they're playing great defense. I don't think they've really struggled in a lot of games this year, whether it was top tier teams, whether it was teams with more enrollment. I think Hoban is just a well-coached, highly talented team, and I look for them and hopefully Hudson to, meet in the finals and determine who goes to the state semis for Division II.
Yeah, I'll give myself a little credit. Last week when we talked about this game, I thought Riverside would give Hudson a little bit of battle, and I was right on this one. And just looking at, Hoban, you talked about their season. They really only had one close game in the regular season, and that was against Benedictine. That game was played week 3, and Hoban came away with a 31-24 victory. So, like we said in the previous talk in Division One, Region One, it's very hard to defeat a team twice in 1 year, in one season, I should say. So this game could be close. Hoban's on another level right now with the way they're playing back-to-back shutouts. That's going to be a fun game. Hudson, they have another tough game against Warren G. Harding. That's going to be interesting on their end. So this is going to be a fun little bracket to see how it plays out. I think these two games that are coming up here are going to be a lot closer than we think.
Yeah, I'm glad you gave yourself credit there, Josh.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I got you.
Don't hurt yourself.
It's all right. My shoulders and back are strong from carrying this.
Oh my God. Hey, don't start with me. Not tonight. Too much is on the line.
Oh man! All right. Well, nice job, Sean, on Division II, Region 5. Anything else anybody wants to say in that region?
No, all good, man. Let's move on.
All right, Division II, Region 6, and I had some of my teams in that region, and I'll start off first with Avon taking on Medina Highland, and I'm sure we'll have Sean that might want to talk a little bit on this game as well. Avon, they jumped out to a 21-0 lead in this game early on, but with this and every Highland team, they didn't give up in this game. They took 7 minutes off the clock and scored on a 1-yard touchdown run with Lucas Stiles. But then Avon, they would fumble on their own 32-yard line, and Highland, they would recover the fumble and take advantage right before half to score again, and they cut the 21-0 lead. All of a sudden, it was 21-14 at halftime. And Sean, I think you have to give credit to Highland. They're one team that they really never give up. As much as maybe they've had a little bit of a some games are up and down a little bit, but this is a game where if an Avon team jumps out to a 21-0 lead early, it's pretty easy to fold early on.
Yeah, I was following this game a little bit on ScoreStream and as best I could on Twitter Saturday night while I was watching some college football, and it was really interesting to me that when Avon jumped out to a 21-0 lead, I'm thinking, oh man, this could be just like a couple other games we saw Friday night, where a team just kind of gets up and imposes their will for the remainder of the night. But hats off to Highland. They took advantage of rare mistakes that I think Avon made. I mean, obviously a fumble given the weather conditions, the kind of cold, the rainy, the damp, maybe that played a factor. But again, I don't know if Avon was really. I mean, they had one game. They played a couple of warm-up games, but this was a lot on the line, and Highland was ready. They were motivated. They took advantage of a mistake that Avon doesn't usually make. They're very well coached. They execute very well, and they don't make a lot of turnovers. So credit to Highland for taking advantage. The problem was, Rob, is that was at halftime, and then we know what happens in the second half with Avon. They kind of grind it down and really eat up a lot of clock. They're able to kind of manufacture first downs, manufacture points, but also the big thing is ball control. I mean, that's what they do. They were able to beat Avon week 1, kind of doing that same philosophy. They don't get into a lot of shootouts, and if they do, it's because there's been it's a lot of teams have a lot of stretch the field talent, things like that. But in this game, I think Avon was very well suited to do what they like to do: grind it out, run the ball control. And really kind of salt away the game. And I think that's what we saw in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. In the second half, that's when, Avon must have had a game plan at halftime, because they came out, they scored twice immediately. Avon running back, like you said, they like to run the ball with Devin Hunter. He had 124 yards rushing and scored 3 times in the game. And Avon, they go on to a 35-14 win. As the Eagles, they advance to their 4th straight regional semifinal appearance, and they'll take on, a team that we'll get to here shortly, and we'll leave you hanging. for a little bit to
Yeah.
see, when Sean goes over that game. But what a game that was. I thought overall Highland in the first half, like we said, they hung around, and Avon, I think they knew the seriousness of the Hornets, and they came out firing in the second half and just dominated in that second half. So give credit to Coach Elder and that group as Avon improves to 8-0, 6-0 as the number one seed and getting that 35-14 win.
Yeah, it was very impressive by Avon to be able to right the ship a little bit and not let a team like Highland, who's been a momentum team, kind of, take that momentum out of halftime, and they kind of came out and they, like we said, they just kind of grinded them down and scored quickly, got up on them, and then their defense went to work. I mean, their defense pitched a shutout in the second half, and that's in playoff games, in regional quarterfinal games, that's what you want.
All right. And Sean, you'll probably be part of this one too. Is Avon Lake, the number 3 seed? They took on the number 22 seed, the North Royalton Bears, and we all know how North Royalton has done. They beat 2 Southwestern Conference teams to start the playoffs. The weather was not good. Obviously, Sean was in it. He braved the weather to cover the Brecksville game. It was not good in this game, and the Shoremen. I think it kind of. I didn't know who this would be an advantage for because North Royalton has a great running back that they like to run as well. But the Shoremen, they scored 14 points before the hour-long rain delay, and that was due to lightning. So they scored 14 pretty quick there.
Yeah, Avon Lake was one of the games that, as I was watching the game that I covered, the Brecksville Barberton game, we were playing, and I was checking my phone, and I got the alert that Avon Lake had gone in, and I'm like, oh man, if they're stopping now, we're not very far, the way that was coming. And then sure enough, about 15, 20 minutes later, they called our game. So I was interested to see if Avon Lake would have any rust coming off, because again, they're a very good team as well. I mean, there's no secret here. Avon Lake likes to run the ball with Gage Dusler, and that's what they do, and he does a great job. And that offensive line blocks. The defense is a attacking defense, and North Royalton. I wonder if this was more of an attrition thing for them. You're playing, they're playing essentially the cream of the crop of the Southwestern Conference, so they got a taste of what that conference life is like for them. And I think maybe that we ran into a bit of a buzzsaw here in the fact that Avon Lake understood. Hey, they beat Amherst, they beat Olmsted Falls, and they rightly so. They had a lot of swagger coming into that game, and there may have been some chirping going on from some of the accounts that I read. Maybe North Royalton was feeling confident, maybe they should have been, because they had beaten some really good teams. But Avon Lake and Avon out of the Southwestern Conference are really the top 2 teams here, and for good reason. And we just kind of went over was Avon Lake's ability to score and to execute down the field. That's what I saw last week when I watched the Avon Lake Wadsworth game, was their ability to execute downfield. It's not the initial contact, it's how they block downfield to spring Dusler, who's running the ball, or how a wide receiver is able to make that little move to open himself up just enough for Michael Corbo to put that ball in there. It's a very impressive way they do things. And you can tell it's a team that's experienced. You can tell it's a team that's well coached. You can also tell it's a team that knows the game plan coming in, and that they don't really stray too far away from it. Hats off to North Royalton for what they did, but Avon Lake was really up for this game Friday night, and I don't think the hour weather delay really stopped their momentum at all.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, they continued. It's quarterback Michael Corbo. He had a few nice touchdown passes, and Gage Dusler, he had a 50-yard touchdown run. But give credit to that Avon Lake defense. After the rain delay, they continued to really slow down that North Royalton running game and the passing game. Not much going there, as Avon Lake wins 54-7 in this one. I thought it'd be a little bit closer, but Avon Lake not messing around, and we'll see what they do as they continue on in the D2 Region 6 regional semifinal. And they will take on the number 2 Toledo Central Catholic. The Irish, as they got to win 50-6 over the number 10 Toledo St. Francis de Sales. Toledo Central Catholic is there every single year. That's going to be a great matchup for the Shoremen who
in Toledo.
Yeah, they got to travel to Toledo. That's going to be a tough one.
Yep.
And there was one other game, Sean, that
Yep.
you were at, as a matter of fact.
I was there. I was on the field. I was in my car. I was on the field. I was wet. I was mad. My phone didn't work right because it was wet because I didn't bring an umbrella because I'm an idiot. So bear with me, folks. But the game that I went to actually featured two teams that, for all intents and purposes, were in the same division. They're in the same conference, the Suburban League, but it was Barberton, who pretty much this year, due to the scheduling, kind of the geographical location, played a majority of a national division team. So it was interesting to see how this worked out. Obviously the story of the night is going to be the Bees and their offense. As I've said a couple times, I've gone to these games this year. It's Joe Labus, it's Garrett Kubitz, it's pick your poison. And I think Barberton just they got a little bit of everything in this game. It started out with a 1-yard touchdown run by Garrett Kubitz, but really that whole drive that Brecksville started with was all Garrett Kubitz down the field. He was rattling off runs. I think the 1-yard touchdown run was just an extension of the 32-yard run he had the play before. The linemen were getting to the second level pretty easy for Brecksville, and any offensive line coach will tell you if you're getting to the second level and getting a pad on a linebacker, your running back is a very happy man. Then the scoring got with Joe Labus got in on the scoring as he was able to hit from 51 yards to wide receiver Luke Ganna. The problem here, Ed, and I think you would appreciate this, was with all the weather and all the wind and the swirling winds, field goal kicking extra point kicking was not something that was very good. And it was to no fault of the kickers. It literally was wet ball, windy, and just bad snaps. You really couldn't get a good grip on the ball. I think the holder even complained as he was coming back on a couple of them. He goes, I'm basically just putting it down, hoping he hits it with his foot. So I'm not going to, criticize any field goal kickers, but they did miss the initial extra point on the Kubitz touchdown run and then tried for 2 to kind of make it a 14-0 game. That didn't work. So by the end of the first quarter, the Bees held a 12-0 lead. They would add 3 more points to this from actually a 23-yard field goal. So everything I just said about the field goal, some things did go right, but I think that was kind of the calm before the storm, so to speak, because right after that field goal went up and went good, we had 90 minutes of sitting in your car and following things on Twitter and watching raindrops, because that's what happened. 90-minute weather delay. But once that weather delay was over, the Bees picked up right where they left off, and Joe Labus would connect with Jeremy Ginazzo for a 40-yard touchdown pass, and a failed extra point made it 21-0 in favor of the Bees. And again, this was the game stopped midway through the second quarter, and then they, kind of picked it up with, like I said, midway through the second quarter. The Magics finally did get on the board thanks to Chandon Lee, quarterback for them, hit a 41-yard touchdown pass to wide receiver Charles Hornacek. They did make their extra point, and at the end of the second quarter, it was 21-7. The weather delay resulted in the game moving directly into the third quarter, so there wasn't any halftime break, which was, at that point, I think a welcome sight for everybody because they were just getting back into it. And Garrett Kubitz would find the end zone again for a second touchdown of the night, this time from 20 yards out, and, a successful extra point. Now the score is 28-7. The Magics actually were a little bit more game after the weather delay here, and we're kind of finding their rhythm. Chandon Lee would find wide receiver Hayden Macko for a 9-yard touchdown. They made the extra point. It was 21-14 or 28-14 with 7:54 left in the third quarter. And that's where Joe Labus took over. He was able to account for the next 2 Bees touchdowns. The first one came on a 16-yard run. They did attempt a 2-point conversion, mostly because of a penalty that was on Barberton. And Coach Ponder decided he wanted to go for 2 at that point. They did not make that. The second came as he hooked up again with Jeremy Ginazzo, this time for 52 yards for his second touchdown reception of the night. At the end of the third quarter, Brecksville held a 41-14 lead. Now, Barberton would open the fourth quarter with a 55-yard touchdown pass from Chandon Lee to Cage Lowe. They did miss the extra point. So, and it was 41-20. Then Garrett Kubitz just took over from that point with 2 rushing touchdowns, one from 32 yards out, the other from 47 yards out. Kubitz finished the night with 4 touchdowns. The Bees ended up leading 55-20. At this point, it was a running clock, so the game really kind of sped up from that point. Magics would add another touchdown pass, this time again hooking up from Chandon Lee to Charles Hornacek. And as the seconds were winding out in this game, they did secure a safety. Truth be told, this was as everybody was leaving, including yours truly. I looked back at the scoreboard and saw it was now 55-30. That would be the final score as Brecksville, Broadview Heights, the Bees, end up with a 55-30 victory. Big story in this game. Again, Garrett Kubitz 4 rushing touchdowns on the night. Not to be outdone, Joe Labus had 4 touchdowns himself, 3 passing, 1 rushing, and Jeremy Genazzo had 2 big touchdown receptions on the night. Brecksville, Broadview Heights, they move on, and you know who they face, Rob? They face the Avon Eagles at Avon Friday night, Division II, Region 6 semifinals. Let's go.
Uh-oh. I know it's going to be a good one. I mean, that's going to be an absolute great game. Avon 8-0. What, Brecksville, Broadview Heights 7-1 in this game?
I believe so. Yeah.
So, both teams absolutely. What a year they've had so far, and Brecksville has shown what they can do. They have, pretty much all the talent you want. They have such a talented quarterback that is the leader of their team, and they've just continued to really dominate and make it into the playoffs, and Avon has too. So it's going to be a fun game. This is at Avon, so it's going to be fun.
It's really impressive to watch Brecksville operate offensively. Joe Labus he can make all the throws. He's able to throw open receivers, which is very interesting when you watch a senior quarterback do that, because a lot of these times I didn't think that the receivers had enough separation, and sure enough, it's just that extra. He puts a little bit of air under it, and that wide receiver is wide open, and he's gone. And that was one thing that aggravated me too, because a lot of the times, and I don't have a problem with Mr. Labus, he's a very good quarterback, but when you're throwing touchdown passes, let me get down there. I'm not as fast as I used to be. I'm trying to get video, which was a fruitless endeavor all night anyway because it was pouring rain. But still, I'm trying to get video, but I can't catch a 51-yard touchdown pass, when I'm trying to walk by, not be socially distanced between the cheerleaders, the bench, and the players. And it's a whole thing.
Oh, I know. I mean, I faced it when I was at North Olmsted and Midview. I think the final was 48-45, and it's tough.
Yeah.
It really tests your.
And you're just running back and forth. Well, I don't have skill. I have 2 skills. Not one of them is video.
You're learning, Sean.
See,
You're learning.
I'm very, very interested.
Josh, can we say he's
learning?
He's learning on the job here.
He's got a lot more to go though if he wants to become a championship on that championship level.
I don't understand why you continuously throw your luck in my face. It's not appreciated. We're trying to do a professional show here, and your nonsense is unwelcome, sir. Unwelcome.
Sorry. Hold on. I'll go back to just cleaning this up.
Okay. Well. Okay. Now honestly, now it looks weird. Don't do that again. People get in trouble for what they do on calls.
Well, we still do have some other divisions, or a division we want to cover, Division 3, Region 9. We'd like to cover, right, Ed?
I believe this is Sean's realm here, sir.
Yeah, this happened last week, Rob. It's just a heap and helping in my ugly face. We'll get to Division 3. Yeah, Division 3, Region 9, which featured one team from the Suburban League. That would be the number 5, Aurora Greenman, traveling into number 4, New Philadelphia. This was a surprising outcome for me, as New Philadelphia moves on to the semifinals as they beat Aurora 38-17. This really had this. Now, to be fair, this had a couple rain delays. They actually delayed the start of the game, and then they had to stop in the middle of the game. That may have contributed to it. But I think also, and again, I tried to look for this online today, but I think a lot of the 8 players that I mentioned last week that Coach McCulloch had to kind of on the fly plan for, I think those were also still not players not available to him. And I think where we see that that talent disparity, this may have been an issue too. But unfortunately, Aurora falls to New Philadelphia 38-17. As of now, Aurora does not have a scheduled game next week. That could change, but again, right now Aurora is no longer in the Division III Region 9 playoffs. To kind of go through that bracket really quick, the Chardon game versus Geneva ended up being a 57-13 victory for Chardon. They will face New Philadelphia. As I mentioned, they beat Aurora 38-17. Streetsboro with a 54-21 victory over Dover will face Canfield, who won 14-6 against Akron St. Vincent St. Mary on Friday night. So that region is set as Chardon will face New Philadelphia, Streetsboro will face Canfield. And that's all the news from Division III Region 9.
All right. Nice job, Sean. Now, I know this one will be at Division III Region 10.
Yes, sir.
Looks like our last division that we have here.
For teams that are still in the playoffs, that would be accurate. Division 5 Region 18 included Elyria Catholic and Fairview. However, both of those teams have been eliminated for either through play or through COVID. So we'll wrap up today with Division 3 Region 10. There are 2 games in this that do involve our teams. So the first game, the game that I'll go over, just to give Sean a little bit of a break here, Bowling Green, the number 3 seed, hosted number 6 seed Parma Heights Holy Name, the Green Wave. And the number 6 seed, after a 7-3 deficit, Green Wave quarterback Javon Williams rushed for a 51-yard touchdown run. Holy Name was down the entire game, but they were able to come back. They took a 24-21 lead into the fourth quarter as the Bowling Green Bobcats are driving for a score in the fourth quarter. Holy Name forces a turnover, and the Green Wave get the win. They go on the road all the way to Bowling Green from Parma and get a victory. Javon Williams, a sophomore quarterback, rushed for 2 touchdowns. Running back Christian Sanchez also rushed for a touchdown for the Green Wave. With the win, Holy Name improves to 6-1. They will advance to the Division III Region 10 semifinals. They will take on the number 2 seed Ashland Arrows. They were a 21-7 victor over number 7 seed Norwalk. So Holy Name is going to be Road Warriors for the rest of the playoffs up until unless they can get to the regional finals and win that. But this Holy Name team is explosive. They play tough defense, and their quarterback Javon Williams really makes them go. And he's got great complementary pieces with Christian Sanchez. He's a tough runner. He can break tackles once he gets out into open space. He's tough to bring down. The defense is very opportunistic. They've forced turnovers all year long. Coach Dan Wondolowski has done a tremendous job. And if they can't upset number 2 Ashland, I would look for them to be a very, very an early favorite to do some damage in next year's playoffs. And then so that will essentially wrap it up for me. Are we still doing player and coach of the week? We're still doing that?
Yeah, it's up to I thought about that, and I mean, if you guys want to, you still can. I didn't have anybody for my division, but I can pick somebody if we want to do that. That's no problem.
Well, let me finish out Division 3 Region 10 here. As the number 8 seed Revere Minutemen traveled in to take on number 1 seeded Tiffin Columbian. And this game was an interesting game as Revere was held a 14-7 lead going into the fourth quarter. But the issue here was the Tornadoes of Tiffin Columbian would score 21 points in the fourth quarter to Revere's 7 as the Revere Minutemen fall 28-21 in this game. Last week's player of the week, Zane Lehman, had a touchdown, and Revere did also return an interception for 61 yards for a touchdown. Wide receiver Shane Slattery also had a touchdown reception. However, it just wasn't enough for the Minutemen to overcome a 21-point rally from the Tiffin Columbian Tornadoes. As I mentioned, Revere will face Kent Roosevelt next week, and the Tornadoes of Tiffin Columbian survive and move on to face the winner of the
Padua.
Yeah, the Millersburg West Holmes defeated Padua 29-22 in last week. So they will face Tiffin Columbian for a shot to play either Parma Heights Holy Name and Ashland, who also play.
Well, West Holmes has done. I mean, this is their third. They hosted a playoff game in the first round. They went on the road to Cloverleaf. They beat a very hot Cloverleaf team, and then they beat a very, very, very hot Padua team. So West Holmes they're playing with house money right now, and they are certainly not afraid of anybody. And I'm sure they're going to look at the tape between Tiffin and Revere and see what they can do, see if they can maintain whatever momentum that Revere was not able to maintain in the fourth quarter. Just a tremendous year for Revere, by the way, Sean.
Yes.
We don't see. We don't get to hear about them a whole lot in the playoffs because they quite honestly just haven't qualified since we've been covering them. But they got a shot into the playoffs this year, and they definitely proved that they belonged.
Yeah, they're
very much so.
Yeah, when I saw them play against Buckeye, they're a very physical team, and they're built for a playoff run like they have been, really relying on a strong running game and a strong, fast, aggressive defense. And so far, that's really been working for them. And then,
so the Holy Name and Ashland, I think that's gonna be a really good game. Ashland likes to go 5 wide, 4 or 5 wide, throw it around the yard. Holy Name's a little more of a disciplined approach, but their game will go as Javon Williams takes that, and Coach Juan Dolowski for Holy Name certainly understands that, and I think we have 2 tremendous games coming up here to determine who's going to face off for the Division III Region 10 championship coming up in 2 weeks.
Absolutely. And to finish out my recap so that I can finally be done, my G&G Coach of the Week goes to Martin Potter from Brecksville, and my player goes to Joe Lavis from Brecksville. They were very good. They did a great job, specifically Joe Lavis, as I mentioned, 3 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. It was neck and neck with Garrett Kubitz, but I realized that I gave Garrett a Player of the Week earlier in the season. So, Joe, you get it this week.
And for me, this is going to be a repeat. But if you keep winning playoff games on the road, if you go on the road and win a playoff game, you deserve to get this as well. So, Holy Name Coach Dan Wondolowski will be the G&G Fitness Equipment Coach of the Week nominee for the Great Lakes Conference. And then the RRT Productions Player of the Week goes to Tommy Beebe for Rocky River. He had 3 touchdowns and a victory over Buckeye. So congratulations to both of them. Make sure you vote for them on our Twitter page.
Yeah, SOT Podcast, we'll have that up as well. And my G&G Fitness Coach of the Week was Avon head coach Mike Elder. For an 8-0 season so far, they continue on to take on Brecksville. And the RRT Productions Player of the Week went to Avon running back Devin Hunter. He had 3 touchdowns, 124 yards rushing in a 35-14 win over Highland. And he was a difference maker there for Avon and really controlled the ground game and was a difference in the game. So congratulations to Devin Hunter and head coach of the Avon Eagles, Mike Elder, for winning that spot.
Yeah, and I'll round out with my nominees. And I'm going to go non-playoff this week because 2 of the GC teams that were not playing in the playoffs got some really big wins. So Coach of the Week, G&G Fitness Coach of the Week nominee is going to go to Illyria's Devlin Culver. Big win for him, really setting a good tone as they move into the SWC next year. And my RRT Productions Player of the Week nominee is going to go to Solon running back Khalil Eichelberger, 273 yards, 4 touchdowns on 29 rushing attempts. So congratulations to those gentlemen. And again, like we've all mentioned, that poll will be up on our Twitter page here right after the show. And you'll be able to vote for the next day. Results will be there tomorrow. So good luck to all the nominees.
Very well done. Yeah, go to @SOT Podcast for that. And check out our website, sportsontapodcast.com as well. We're on YouTube, so this video, if you want to go back and watch it, it'll be on our website, sportsontapodcast.com, but also be on our YouTube page as well. Or you could replay it on Facebook Live or Facebook. Go back and watch Josh holding up his belt for Sean, and Sean very displeased.
Don't do that. Why would you do that? Check the score, big man.
It happens. Uh-oh. Is Sean Duffy going to pull this off?
By the skin of my teeth, maybe. Let's see.
That's okay.
A lot of football.
That is fine.
Well, guys, we can talk about our fantasy football on another show, but the playoff edition here and regular season in our conferences went through all of them there, and somebody's blowing up over there. Don't know who. But,
it's my phone because I have to use my phone, and someone's texting, and I don't want to point any fingers. But someone's texting.
Any last thoughts about the playoffs or brackets or anything going on?
Good luck to all the teams in our respective conferences that are left. And let's hopefully we have some more to talk about after this week.
Yeah. Make sure again follow us at the SOTpodcast.com. Go to the at the website SOT Podcast on Twitter. We will be posting a schedule of this week's games, non-playoff and playoff games surrounding our teams. And if you are in the age bracket to vote in the upcoming election, go ahead and vote.
Nice job.
Again, dude.
And selfishly vote for the coach, the RRT Productions Player of the Week and the G&G Fitness Player Coach of the Week on our Twitter poll that Josh is going to put together as soon as I send him the correct spelling of the names, because
That's right.
we want to make sure we spell those names right, because we sure as hell can't say them right. So we might as well spell them right.
That's right. Well, again, great job, guys, and we'll wait and see what happens in the regional semifinals here of the playoffs as we go on, and we'll also have some regular season games we'll be able to cover, or whatever's available for us there. So great job tonight, and we'll look forward to next week, guys.
Alrighty.
All right.
Sounds
Have a
good
good week, guys, and we'll see you soon. For Ed Dick, Sean Duffy,
Bye.
Jesse, I'm Rob Troutman saying so long for Sports on Tap. Good luck to all the teams this Friday in the playoffs. See
Oh my God, he's trying to smolder. Look at him. He's trying to smolder.
Oh boy. See you later.